Hello, Racine Bible. I want to talk to you today about the mindset that we need to have to make it through these strange times. And actually, these two mindsets that I'm going to share with you, I shared this with the Racine Bible Church board at our board meeting last month with the 12 or 13 deacons and 11 or 12 elders and church officers that were there. So those guys, if you're watching this, which I know the board never watches these, so you wouldn't skip anyway, but you have my permission to skip this one because you already heard it live in the board meeting. But all of you who weren't at the board meeting, go with me on these two mindsets that'll help us make it through these strange times. The first mindset, let's call it sobriety. And by that, I mean like a stone hard focus on keeping the main thing the main thing. 1 Peter 4:7. The end of all things is at hand. Therefore, be self-controlled and sober-minded for the sake of your prayers. Be self-controlled and sober-minded for the sake of your prayers, knowing that the end of all things is at hand. You see that mindset there that sees this is God's timetable, this is God's world, this is God's plan, and we have a sobriety that keeps our focus where it needs to be. And that's what we want. We want a sober-minded, enduring, steadfast faithfulness that gives us the awareness that the end of all things is at hand, and we have this sobriety that says specifically this: we're not fighting a battle that is physical. We're not fighting a battle that is economic primarily or social. We're not fighting a battle that is political. We're in a spiritual war, and God holds the outcome in his hands. So sobriety leads us to this God-centered focus, and sobriety leads us to a prayerfulness. This is why when he addresses the leaders of the church later on in the very next chapter, Peter says this, 1 Peter 5:8-11. Be sober-minded, he says again. Be sober-minded, be watchful, for your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. Resist him, be firm in your faith, knowing that the same kinds of suffering are being experienced by your brotherhood throughout the world. And after you've suffered a little while, the God of all grace, who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. To him be the dominion forever and ever. So to be sober-minded is not merely to not be drunk, though it certainly includes that meaning. To be sober-minded means to not be distracted from the real situation that's going on. To be sober-minded means to not be distracted from the primary thing by so many secondary and third level and fourth level issues. And the reason I shared this with the church board is because at the leadership level, we have got to keep our eye on the ball and not run around constantly dealing with all of these little sparklers when we know what the real fire is and where the real battle is. It means not being pulled this way and that by whatever's the latest thing on Facebook or the latest thing on this or the latest thing on that. It means a primary focus on what really matters. And when you think about focus, you take this nickel. It's not worth very much. It's only worth 5 cents. But if I take this nickel and I put it right in front of my eye, well, it's the only thing that I can see. And whenever we take the secondary matters, the third level issues, but they become like so important to us, then all of a sudden it blocks out what for the believer is the horizon. And for the believer, the horizon is this. You hear me, church? It's this. The end of all things is at hand. Jesus Christ is crushing the devil and death to death by his victory from the grave, and he is soon returning. And we keep our eye on that. Particularly as Christians, particularly as Christian leaders, we want to stay sober-minded and focused on the main thing. So that's one mindset that'll help us make it through these strange times. And then a second mindset, and I like this because in the biblical sense, it's not the opposite, but biblical truth is so variegated that it gives us everything from every angle. If the first point was like a stone hard focus, the second mindset is this: a flexibility and a willingness to change. A flexibility and a willingness to change in doing the work of the ministry in strange times and strange seasons. We don't change the gospel. We don't change the truth. We don't change the mission of the church. But if this whole COVID thing has shown us anything, it's that whatever plans we make, they get changed again, they get changed again, and it requires a flexibility and a willingness to do the work of the ministry during a strange time in strange ways. You know, we've never had an all stop on our services like we did this year. And we still haven't started back up nearly everything that we normally do. And the fact of the matter is, when we do start everything back up, it's not going to be the exact same we that starts everything back up. Some people have even gone to heaven in the last few months. Some people who served in a particular area last year aren't going to be able to serve in that area this year or the year after. And we have to have a flexibility and a willingness to just jump in and serve wherever it's needed. I love those utility players that are just like, this is my team, whatever the team needs, I'm just going to jump in and fill in like that. Like 1 Peter 4:10 and 11 says, each one has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks as one who speaks the oracles of God, whoever serves as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. One of the marks of Racine Bible all down through the years has been the generosity of the financial giving of God's people and also the generosity of your time and your abilities and your talents and your gifts. And we are going to lean on that heavily in the months ahead as we start and stop and restart and shift and change. And it's going to require that mindset of flexibility and that eagerness to just jump in and help wherever needed. And I am very confident, knowing you like I do, that we're going to see that and we're going to be able to glorify God and do good in this city in a lot of new ways in the months ahead.